This story, titled Her Laughter Echoes Still, Remembering My Best Friend After Cancer. It's strange how the sound of someone's laughter can linger long after they're gone. My name is Lauren Miller, and I'm 31 years old, living in Portland, Oregon. If you were to ask me about the most important person in my life, I wouldn't hesitate for a second. It was Emily Harper, my best friend. Emily and I met in the 5th grade, the kind of meeting that feels destined, like the universe knew we were meant to find each other. I was the quiet, bookish kid who spent recess with my nose buried in a novel, and Emily was the whirlwind, wild, loud, and unapologetically herself. She had this way of pulling people into her orbit, making you feel like the most important person in the room just by smiling at you. She didn't just bring me out of my shell, she shattered it completely. By the time we were in high school, we were inseparable, a duo so tightly knit that people often joked we shared a brain. Late-night movies, road trips to nowhere, and hours of laughing until our stomachs hurt. Emily was more than my best friend. She was my family, my constant, my sister in everything but blood. But life, as it often does, had different plans. We were 28 when Emily first mentioned the lump. "It's probably nothing," she said casually, brushing it off as though she were talking about a pesky mosquito bite. But I could see the worry in her eyes, the way her fingers lingered on her collarbone. She promised me she'd get it checked, but it wasn't until weeks later, after my incessant nagging, that she finally went to the doctor. I still remember the day she called me with the news. Her voice trembled in a way I'd never heard before. "It's cancer, Lauren," she said, her words cutting through the static on the phone line. Time seemed to freeze in that moment. Cancer. The word felt foreign, unreal, like it didn't belong in the same sentence as Emily, my vibrant, unstoppable best friend. The months that followed were a blur of hospital visits, treatment schedules, and long nights spent sitting by her side. Emily faced it all with the kind of bravery that left me in awe. Even on her worst days, when the chemo left her weak and nauseous, she managed to crack jokes and make the nurses laugh. "Laughter is the best medicine, right?" she'd say with a grin, even as her voice wavered from exhaustion. I tried to be her rock, the person she could lean on when the weight of it all became too much. But the truth is, I was terrified. Watching someone you love fight for their life is a kind of pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. And yet, Emily never let me sink into despair. She had this uncanny ability to lighten even the heaviest moments. One night, as we sat in her living room watching old reruns of Friends, she turned to me with that mischievous glint in her eye. "If I don't make it through this," she said, "promise me you'll keep laughing. I don't want you to turn into some brooding, tragic figure, okay? That's not a good look for you." I rolled my eyes, trying to hide the lump forming in my throat. "You're not going anywhere, Em," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. "Still," she insisted, reaching for my hand. "Promise me, Lauren, life is too short to be serious all the time." I nodded, unable to speak past the tears that threatened to spill. But deep down I knew. I knew she was preparing me for a world without her in it. The last few months of Emily's life were a whirlwind of emotions. Hope, despair, love, and fear, all tangled together in a way that felt impossible to navigate. The treatments were no longer working, and the doctors gently told us that it was time to focus on her comfort. I hated those words. Comfort felt like a surrender, a cruel admission that there was nothing left to fight for. Emily, though, was as stubborn as ever. Even in her final days, she was determined to live on her terms. "We're not doing pity parties," she declared one afternoon, her voice weak but resolute. "I want laughter, bad movies, and as much ice cream as I can eat." And that's exactly what we gave her. Her small apartment became a hub of activity, filled with friends and family who loved her fiercely. We watched cheesy rom-coms, played board games, and shared stories that had us crying with laughter. There were moments, of course, when the reality of what was happening hit us like a freight train. But Emily wouldn't let us dwell on it for long. One night, as I sat beside her bed, she looked at me with a seriousness I wasn't used to seeing. "Lauren," she said softly, "I need you to promise me one more thing." I sighed, trying to mask my heartbreak with a smile. "What now? No more brooding, no sad playlists, and definitely no ugly crying in public?" She chuckled weakly, shaking her head. "No, this is different." Her gaze held mine. her expression uncharacteristically somber. I need you to keep living, really living. Do the things you're scared of. Take risks. Go after the things you love. Don't let fear stop you from being happy. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I promise, I whispered, even though the thought of a life without her felt unbearable. Emily passed away on a crisp autumn morning with the golden sunlight streaming through her window. I was holding her hand when she took her last breath, the room eerily quiet, except for the sound of my own ragged breathing. In the days that followed, the world felt impossibly empty. I struggled to process the loss, to reconcile the idea that someone so vibrant, so full of life, could be gone. Her laughter echoed in my mind, a bittersweet reminder of all we had shared. For weeks, I found myself retreating into solitude, avoiding people, avoiding life. I couldn't bring myself to fulfill the promises I had made to her. Every time I thought about moving forward, it felt like a betrayal. How could I laugh, dream, or take risks without her by my side? But then one day, I found a letter. It was tucked inside a small box of keepsakes Emily had left for me, alongside a photo of the two of us from our high school graduation and a bracelet she used to wear. The envelope was labeled simply, "For Lauren." With trembling hands, I opened it and began to read. Dear Lauren, if you're reading this, it means I've finally kicked the bucket. Sorry to leave you with all this emotional baggage, but hey, you knew what you were signing up for when you became my best friend. I know you're probably hurting right now, and that's okay. Grieve. Cry. Eat an entire tub of ice cream if you need to. But after that, I need you to do something for me. Live. Remember all those ridiculous plans we made? The road trip across the country, the dance class we were too chicken to sign up for, the book you always said you'd write but never did? Do them. Do all of it. And when you're scared, or when you think you can't do it, just imagine me next to you, cheering you on and telling you to stop being so dramatic. Life is messy and unpredictable, but it's also beautiful. And you, my dear, have so much left to experience. So go out there and live the hell out of it, for both of us. I love you more than words can say. Thank you for being my person, my sister, my everything. Always, Emily. By the time I finished reading, tears were streaming down my face. But for the first time since her passing, I felt something other than pain. I felt her humor, her love, her unstoppable spirit. It was all there in her words, urging me to keep going. In the months that followed, I started to honor her wishes. I signed up for that dance class, despite my complete lack of rhythm. I took the road trip we had always dreamed of, driving for hours with the windows down and the music blasting. And I started writing. Small pieces at first, just for me. But eventually, I found the courage to share them with others. Each step felt like a way of keeping her memory alive, of carrying her laughter and love into everything I did. Emily taught me that life is too short to hold back, to let fear dictate our choices. And while I'll always miss her, I know she's still with me, in every laugh, every adventure, and every moment of courage. Her laughter still echoes, not just in my memory, but in the way I choose to live my life. If my story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe for more heartfelt tales like this one. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to share more stories of love, loss, and the beautiful messiness of life. Thank you for being here.